All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Home Studio Simplified channel. Today we're going to be covering a song submission, January song submission winner. So we have these song contests every month now. Last January, we had some awesome submissions. We're going to be going over the mix breakdown of the winner. So if you're not familiar with this, we'll discuss a little bit more about what this is, how it all is working out. For some reason or another, though, I do have to apologize. Nothing seems to be working at all. So the webcam doesn't work today for some reason or another. All of a sudden, the coffee cam is broke. It doesn't want to work. I think my OBS needs updated or something. I don't know. But either way, we're going to do the best with what we can do. So you won't be seeing my beautiful face today, but you will still be hearing my beautiful voice. Nonetheless, you are going to be hearing a beautiful mix. So this channel exists to simplify the complexities of the home studio and to help you make professional sounding music in a less than professional space. If you're new here, you can dream alone, you can create alone, but together, and this is what this is all about, we can achieve so much more. So as the episode title has denoted, we're going to be going over the mix breakdown of the January winner. This was Jason Reeves with his song Perseverance. So really excited to be diving into this song, as I've seen a lot of stuff come through here lately that's very guitar centric. And one thing I definitely love is some good guitar, and this one definitely has that. So before we get into this wonderful, wonderful mix and his wonderful production that he's got going on, smash that thumbs up, Randall Hibbard says. Nice. Let's check out some other things that we always have to do around here. And of course, we're going to give some honor where honor is due to our chart toppers. So thank you so much to these individuals who have helped to keep the lights on, so to speak. These are individuals who have either donated through the super chat feature, which looks like a small S at the bottom left-hand corner of your chat bar. And if you want to donate to the channel through that small S there, you can donate anything from like $1.99 and up. Every little bit does help. These are individuals who have done so, whether it be a super chat feature or they are also Patreon members. If you'd like to know how to get involved with Patreon, there's a ton of cool stuff you can get for free just for joining. Even at the $5 level, you get a ton of cool stuff. And as that community grows, we're going to be having some more Patreon member only type things, as well as some YouTube membership only type things. And if you'd like to become a YouTube member, there's a link below for that as well. We already do have Chris Knowles, who jumped on for the membership for $1.99 a month. Thank you so much, Chris, for that. He has become the assistant engineer now. I believe that's the level. I think it goes assistant engineer, lead engineer, head engineer, something like that. Anyway, each tier gets you a little bit more access to a little bit more. This is bogus. You can't even see me drinking my coffee. And nonetheless, though, we are going to try to hopefully move on today without the usage of the camera. And I might even be able to fix it while this is all going on, but who knows? We'll try. We'll see what we can do. With that being said, though, let me, I might even be able to, bear with me just for a second here. I'm going to try one other thing here. Yeah, it's not even showing up at all. Yep. Not showing up at all. Oh, well. With that being said, let's go ahead and we're going to check out the original mix that he submitted, the one that actually got him to win the January song contest. And then we're going to check out my version of the mix after I mixed and mastered it myself. Now, this is not to poke fun or anything like that. In fact, he won because his mix was so good, and the implementation of how he put the things together was amazing. So it's not any derogatory connotation towards Jason. It's just whenever you win, I then will mix and master it for free, and then you can hopefully get to see how I could improve something. Now, you might think, actually, I liked his mix better. that's completely fine. It's totally up to you. This is all subjective anyway. Most audio is subjective. Some people like things punchier. Some people like things cleaner and tighter, whereas others might like things a little more analog, like flabby sounding. I don't know. I'm just throwing out a bunch of terms there. What I'm getting at is there's not one mix that's better than another. It's really time. It's really up to you. I read Avatar time and said time instead of up to you. Anyway, as we're letting this mix play, his mix, I'm going to be trying to sort of troubleshoot this camera real quick. Hopefully we can get that up and running. If it doesn't work, no harm, no foul. We just won't be seeing my face today. And he says it's Avatar time. Maybe I could put myself down here in the lower left-hand corner. At any rate, let's go ahead and listen to Jason's original mix. This is the song Perseverance. Okay, so evidently I'm not having any luck getting the camera going, but at least you all got to hear the song. So there's some things that really stood out about this song whenever I first heard it, which is what had me rather choose it to be the winner that it is. And one of the first things that really jumped out was the fact that the song just has this driving force behind it. It evokes emotion. And if you remember, like 90% of the time, whenever I pick a song, it's one of those things that it's usually based off of that emotion. So it looks like Jason Reeves is actually in the chat too. Right on. JJ Reeves is in the chat. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give him a round of applause. Excellent, excellent work, man. So with that being said, the emotion that I felt whenever the song was delivered was just absolutely amazing. It's something that I really felt like it just sort of took you somewhere. Now, whenever you listen to a song and it does something like that, to me, that's like a great indication that it's one of those songs that's just going to be, it's automatically a winner, so to speak. So immediately when I heard the song, I was like, wow, this has definitely got some potential. It's already sounds really good as it is. And so my first inclination was like, it just jumps out at you. So with that being said, I went ahead and chose him as the winner. And then from there, we basically just, went from there, and he emailed me the files that I needed. And I'm sorry, I'm still messing with the camera at the same time. I'm multitasking here, folks. Anyway, he emailed me the files that I needed, and then these were completely raw files. And then, of course, I had his guide track to sort of go off of. And, okay, I'm going to quit trying to mess with this camera because it's not going to work. Randall says it reminds him of Ed Thorne's new release. Yeah, those screaming guitars in it. Jimmy says he definitely put it in his Spotify playlist. Nice. Nice. So, as you can see before you here on the screen, this is the original that he had sent that we just listened to. And then these tracks above are my tracks here that I've just taken and I've mixed myself. So we've heard his version. Now let's go ahead and take a listen to my version. It should be about the same loudness. He had his E-mastered, and I did my mastering sort of pizzazz on this one myself. So let's take a listen to this. right. So there was my take on it. Let me know in the chat section here what you thought about it. Did I improve it? Did I make it worse? You know, what did you personally think that I did to the mix? And I'm not going to be, my feelings will not get hurt in the least bit if you said, dude, your mix stunk. So I completely understand. Everyone has different tastes, you know, and it's not something that I get my feelings hurt about too much, because I realize and understand that. So Thomas Beck says, Rob's is more of a California feeling car driving thing out of a love movie. That's humbuckers, I bet. So Jason, go ahead, and if you're still in the chat, go ahead and weigh in on this. The big question right now is, are they humbuckers or was it single coils? Now, I already know the answer to this because I actually work with Jason, so I was able to sort of get the backstory behind this song before anyone else. But if you're still in the chat, go ahead and settle it once and for all. Was this humbuckers or was it single coils? And then what we're going to do is I'm going to kind of A/B back and forth between the two mixes. I think I can do it just like this, actually. All right. Still cannot get the camera to work. It's ridiculous. So Thomas says both are great. Well, that's always an option too. He likes them both. Okay. That didn't work like I thought it would. All right. So he says, we've got the individual himself, the man, the myth, the legend, has weighed in on it. He says it's a humbucker in the bridge position, an older Highway 1 Strat. Nice. I believe this is the black one that he has on his profile. It's a very, very pretty Strat. Very nice. Humbucker in the bridge position. So for those of you who said humbucker, you were right. For those of you who said single coil, you were kind of right too. With that being said, let's go ahead and A/B back and forth between the two. And some things that I want you to listen for when you listen to the original versus mine is spatiality. And what I mean is the stereo field. So I'm going to start it kind of close to this little drop off here, and we'll kind of go from there. So loud music in 3, 2, 1. You know what? I just realized I was running his track through my processing on the master bus. So that's not going to actually be a very, that's not going to be a very good, okay. So here's what the original sounded like. There we go. Versus mine. Okay, so immediately the main thing that I'm picking out is his mix versus mine when it's not being ran through my processing is that his drums are exponentially louder than mine. So that might be an issue that I'd like to address. If he was to send me back a mix revision and say, hey, by the way, I'd like for the drums to come up a little bit. Of course, it's super simple. There's only 2 drum tracks here. So it would just be a simple raising up of a fader just to make those a little louder, and nothing too big there. In fact, listening back to it myself and listening to his, I'm thinking I probably should have went off of his direction and made those drums a little bit louder to begin with. But I usually just mix it in the sense like where I want to hear it. Right on. So, Jason says he hears everything better in my mix. So even though the drums aren't as loud, you can hear all of the elements better. Now, one thing that we're going to talk about as we do the mix breakdown is I'm going to actually show you one of the key factors into actually hearing those better. So before we get into that, though, I am going to turn these drums up just a tad bit because it's driving me nuts now after I hear his and mine. There we go, that's better. Nice. Okay, so that was technically like a dB and a half, maybe even if that. So, and I just now seen Mark's comment too. He'd like to hear the drums just a teensy bit louder. So I think literally just a teensy bit, like a dB and a half did it. I think it made all of the difference there. So when I get done with this video, Jason, I will send you back another copy of this, another version of this with the drums up just a bit. So that, by the way, if you're not familiar with mix revisions, maybe you've never worked with a mix engineer, you don't know what mix revisions are all about, that would be typically like a good mix revision. Like they would send you the initial mix, and I know myself, I always include 3 mix revisions with my mixing services. So typically speaking, it's usually always like the vocal up, vocal down, or the bass up, bass down, drums up, drums down. It's usually little things like that. If you as a mixing engineer have done all of your hard work up front, the most they're ever going to ask for is just for things to be turned up or down. You shouldn't run into like, can you EQ this differently? Can you do that differently? Unless you're actually mixing for another mix engineer, which I've dealt with that before. And it's kind of more nerve-wracking because they know exactly what needs to be done. So instead of them saying, hey, can you turn that up by a dB or 2, they actually focus more on, hey, is there any way you can EQ this 500 hertz on the guitar range or something like that? So it makes it a little bit more nerve-wracking, but it also is kind of better because they know exactly what needs to be done. And sometimes, it's spot on. So with that being said, though, if you're working with a mix engineer and you need to make revisions, be as descriptive as possible, and try to really dive in there to what needs to be done. Okay, so let's start diving in. Speaking of diving in, let's start diving into what we've done to get this to the point where, as Jason has said, he can hear everything a little bit better. Now, 90% of that hearing things better was panning options as well as EQ. So like 90% of a good clear mix is going to be where you've panned the elements in that mix as well as how you've EQ'd it. Now, most of these EQs are pretty much just stock, exactly how they would have came up in my template. And if you have hung around here on the channel for very long, you know that I have a Cakewalk template that I sell for $10 that literally has pretty much all this stuff pre-routed, plugged in there and ready to go. The only thing that I don't have on there are plugins and then these routing options that you're seeing here on the screen in front of you. If I was to zoom in here, you'll see that, like, say, for instance, on this track, I have all of these sends that are going to my reverb buses. That also adds to the spatiality, which you can see here. I always, this isn't, rule of the land, not anything that you definitely should, necessarily do every time. This is just my method, but I always have 3 reverbs, a short, a medium, and a long. And then I literally will just blend in the tracks to those reverbs as I would like. And those reverb sends are set to completely wet. And it's one of those things where, as you can see, it's not the same on all of them. It's actually varies from track to track on how much I blend in there. And that allows me to sort of set things back in the mix or bring them forward based off of how much reverb that I have on them and what type of reverb I'm using. Now, secondarily, we have all of these are EQ'd a little bit differently. And you'll notice here on the Pro channel, it is, these are the vocals that you hear, which is sort of like the choir sound. I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear it at this point in the song. Yeah, like right here. And that's what kind of sells that point as it's driving into that right before the riser when it gets to that screaming solo. I love the fact that he included these in here because it's something that you really don't notice until you notice it. And then once you do notice it, you can't unnotice it. It's really cool. So those are EQ'd pretty much like a vocal would be EQ'd. I think I've done a little bit more cutting of the low end than maybe I would have done on an upfront lead vocal, but these are going to be kind of sitting in the back. So I mainly wanted the higher frequencies. So by cutting out everything from 100 hertz and above, as you can see here, that allowed room for the bass guitar, for the kick, for some of those drum elements that were a little bit lower in the register. And that bass has definitely got some driving force to it as well. And I've done the same with the guitars. Every single guitar has been high passed above 100 hertz. So it doesn't sound like it completely takes away from that low end of the guitar, but it takes enough of it away to where the bass actually gets to fill in where the guitar isn't, if that makes any sense, and allows the bass to kind of just have a space of its own. And then these guitars, as you can see, they're panned hard right and hard left. The reverb sends are panned the same way. And then when we get to the solo, we've done something completely different here. And this is, yet again, not anything that you necessarily have to do, but it's something that I personally will do, not all of the time, but this time in particular, and it just sounded like it did a really good job. So I have the lead guitar is actually a little bit to the left, and then my delay is panned to the right. And what this does is sort of give this monophonic sound a little bit more of, I'm not sure, it's not really spatiality because it's still a monophonic sound, but it just gives it a little bit more width because now you're getting part of that signal on the left side of your ear and another part on the right. And I believe Cesar CJ just hopped in the chat. I believe this is his first time, so you know what that means. We got to give him a crowd cheer, ladies and gentlemen. It's so good to have you here, buddy. So good to see you. And by the way, Mob the Gamer is in the chat. Good to see him back, and he is asking how much I charge for mixing. So typically speaking, just right out of the gate, I charge $70 to mix a song. That includes 3 revisions. Anything past those 3 revisions, we can work out on our own terms. If it's something that I have personally done, I will not charge you for another revision. If it's something else that you want to add to it, then we will talk about money after that point. But typically speaking, it's $70 to mix a song from start to finish. And then I have sort of extra packages on top of that. So if you want the song mixed and mastered, then I'll charge a cheaper rate for the mastering. So instead of it being $50 for a mastering job, I'll actually charge you only $30. So it'd be $100 for a mix and a master. And then on top of that, if there is anything like instrumentation that you want added, if you want me to produce the song itself and make it bigger, add some things to it, add some guitar, use one of the session players. Jason is actually one of the session players. Then I would charge a little bit more for that, obviously, to pay the session player to put that into the song. So with that being said, the rates are sort of elastic, but that's the base standard rate would be $70 for a mix. And if it's going to be mixed and mastered by me, it would be $100 for both. If it's only mastered, it's $50. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so hopping back to the mix, every one of these also has console emulation. You'll notice down here at the bottom. Now, Cakewalk is not unique in the sense that we have console emulation because I believe most DAWs on the market have this, but Cakewalk is unique in the sense that we have different types of Cakewalk, of console emulation rather, and that we can switch back and forth between. Now, this one here is sort of like the subtle type, and it's called the S type, which actually stands for something else, but I always think of it as subtle. neutral, and then aggressive. So the N type is sort of like this neutral sound, whereas the A type is more of a, the best way to describe it is just aggressive. And so I've set all of these to a subtle sort of setting. And the reason I've done this is I believe this mix had a lot of grit already added to it with the guitars and things like that. So I didn't want to like overpower it with console emulation. And you'll notice that the drive is actually set to 0 on these. So it's literally just like it's barely hitting those console faders if it were on like an SSL desk or something like that. So all it's basically doing is just adding saturation and mild harmonics to the entire signal as it's being put through the mix. Now also, along with the electric lead being up in the higher registers, you'll notice that I didn't touch the high pass on the lead. And the reason for this was it's a lead guitar. So therefore, with that being said, I didn't want to really take away from or contract from its low end, because generally speaking, most of it's being played up in the higher registers of the neck. But by leaving the lower frequencies in there on the lead, which I could definitely take them out and you probably wouldn't even notice, but just aesthetically for me, for one, it makes me look at these a little bit differently when I'm looking across the whole track, and I can pick them out easier. For two, just apart from the color coding, but for two, you're actually going to pick up more of what I feel like is like the air that's being pushed from that speaker, which gives it more of a live feeling, more of a solo feeling. So that's sort of the backstory on these. Now, every one of these also has the Renaissance Axe Compressor. Now, I could have used any compressor that I wanted. This one is just real quick, right out of the gate. It sounds good. And yes, it is a Waves plugin. As much as I cannot stand Waves plugins, I do still use some of their plugins. So now every one of these has just the same compressor added on them, just a little bit different, varying levels between one or the other. And the compression in this sense is mainly just to bring up volume, because they were recorded with a lot of headroom and not necessarily quiet. They weren't recorded quiet, but they were just recorded with a lot of headroom. So this helps to bring them up to speed so that I can mix them into the rest of the mix. And it also helps you to hear the picking and the plucking of the pick. And if you notice, this actually has a lot of that driving, like chugging guitar, like the chung, 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 especially during, sort of, if you would want to call it that, the verses. Not so much in the chorus, but in the verses. So all this does is just kind of level things out, make them easier to bring up in a mix and be heard throughout the entirety of the mix. And that's the same thing that I did here on those vocals. You'll notice that I've got a limiter slapped on those. And that's literally to keep them much like the bass guitar, just heard at all times. And I can sort of just set that fader and just leave it there instead of having to do a bunch of automation. So with that being said, we're going to move on to the bass guitar. But before we do that, I want you to hear this electric lead, and I want you to hear it in context with the delay that's added, because I think you're gonna see something pretty cool here. So let's check that out. You hear that? Just that little bit of something that's happening over here on the right side of the stereo field and the right speaker. If you're listening on headphones, it just adds to it. And when you put that in the mix, it's almost like it gives it width and breadth and depth. And then of course the reverb sends that are placed on there. Now, if I was to take all of this off, it doesn't have quite the same feel. Take a listen now. Oops, sorry. Instead of turning them off, I turned off the pre and post. Didn't want to do that. Okay, now I've disabled them. Now take a listen. Still sounds good. Still sounds screaming, but it doesn't quite have the spatiality, the depth that the reverb and the delay gives it. Now, one more time. Awesome. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the bass guitar. Now, the bass guitar is one that a lot of people have problems with, and with good reason. The bass frequencies take up the majority of the mix, and it's hard for the average mix engineer to get them to set into a mix properly. So we're going to talk about that now. Now, this is predominantly, if you've watched this channel, you know this is predominantly what I do on every single mix. It's just a little bit different on every single mix. Obviously, the bass guitar is going to sound different. The dynamics are going to be different. The EQ is going to sound different. Everything is going to be different. So on this, I've always ran a limiter on the bass. So, and this is yet again, just like the vocals, it's to be able to leave that bass alone. Just set the fader and leave it, because it's going to always constantly be at this constant volume level. And you can see here as the bass is playing, let me make sure I turn off that screaming lead real quick, so that doesn't, okay, so I'm going to take off the saturator for now too, so that you can see this, what it's doing real time here. All right, now check this, this view meter out. I mean, it's literally not working, or I mean, not stopping working, whatever. I can't even talk today. It has not stopped working ever since the bass was moving there. With that being said, what this does is literally just keep that bass at a consistent level, whether it's being plucked hard, plucked soft, and that's what helps to give it that driving backbone in the song. Then you take the saturator, which in this case, it doesn't have to be this plugin. This is by Kilohertz, excellent company that has very simple plugins, but any saturation plugin will really work for this, as long as it gives it this grit. Now I want you to hear this before and after. So I'm going to take the saturator off, and then I will enable the saturator so that you can hear it in action. So it's bypassed now, and here we go. Now I know what you're thinking. Wow, that sounds like junk. And to a certain extent, by itself, yes, it does. However, when it's in context with the rest of the mix, it really allows that bass guitar to just poke out of there and to do what the bass guitar is intended to do, which is sort of just be that backbone to the song. Now, to prove this point, I'm going to take this out of solo mode, and I'm going to bypass and re-enable the saturator while the mix is playing, so that you can hear this in context with the mix. So let's go ahead and take it off. Now let's listen to the mix as a whole and see how this adds to the bass guitar. I want you to specifically listen to the bass frequencies, okay? Loud noise in 3, 2, 1. Here's where you're going to hear it really good. So it's very subtle, but it's one of those things that as soon as you take it out, it's like, where did the bass go? And as soon as you put it in, it's like, oh, there's the bass, but it's not overpowering. It's not, taking over the mix. And the reason why it's not overpowering, but you still hear it, is because now you've added harmonics to the signal. And when you add the harmonics, it tricks the ear. It's like an aural exciter, sort of like the dual flex that I'm speaking through right now, which is a spectral enhancer. It literally just takes signals and adds harmonics to those signals so that you can hear them apart from what their fundamental frequencies would be. I know makes total sense, right? Okay. So now let's go ahead and move on to the drums. The drums were treated a little bit differently in the sense that this was just one single track that was given to me, whereas normally I would have the drums split out, and that would be, a bass track, a snare track, you name it. It would all be split out to separate instruments. And so with it just being one stereo track, you got to kind of be careful. You got to treat things a little bit differently. So here we go. Let's go ahead and take a listen to just the drums. Doesn't sound too bad at all. What I did is I boosted the 65 hertz range. This is where your kick drum fundamentals preside. If you was to take that away, the kick would pretty much be non-existent in this song. And it just gives it that extra little thump that you kind of feel in your chest. Now, a great trick for getting the kick drum to poke through even more is usually at about 400 hertz, which actually in this mix, it was literally 400 hertz. Usually around that area, if you dip out just a little bit, your kick comes through so much better. I want you to actually get to hear this. So I'm going to bypass those two there, and let's take a listen. So kick doesn't sound too bad. Here it comes. Sound a little bit better. Now listen. Nice. Okay, so Mob the Gamer has a great question here. He says, what's the difference between the curve and the collars in the EQ? So on this particular EQ that's found within Cakewalk, it is color coded to let you know kind of which band that you're working in. So as you can see, the low band is red, the mid band is a yellow color, the high mids are green, and then the highs are blue. And you can set the Q of these, which a Q is basically like how surgical you want to be. So like say for instance on this low mid, if I wanted the Q to be more surgical, I would set the Q higher. So this would cut out a more defined area of that. Whereas if I set it lower, which is kind of the best thing to do with most the time whenever you do an EQ adjustment, if you don't go for such of a Q setting, a high Q setting, you'll usually get better results. Now, there's no rules to this. However, it's one of those things where typically speaking, it's better to boost with a high Q or a low Q rather, where you're kind of boosting, like 1.3. So this is sort of a not such a surgical boost, but to perform your cuts more surgically because they affect less frequencies that you're trying to cut away. And so Christopher Nankara, whoa, we got a newbie in. Ladies and gentlemen, this is someone that's new to the chat. At least I don't remember him if he has been here before, so you know what that means. Good to have you here, Chris. So happy to have you, buddy. He says it sounds more spatial. Also, the toms seem low end reduced. Yes. And that's where this 400 hertz range really takes care of. If it sort of carves out a room for that kick drum by carving out some of that tom space and the room space, it just seems like to me, it just makes the kick drum just poke through a little bit better. Let me take it out again and we'll do another little before and after. Listen specifically for the kick drum. Loud noise in 3, 2, 1. Awesome, is it not? Now, it doesn't make it like exponentially louder, doesn't make it, huge and jumping out of the speakers, but it carves out just enough space where you can actually start to hear like the click and the thump of the drum a little bit more. It's almost like you hear that kick drum, or feel that kick drum rather, more than you hear it at that point. Okay, so with that being said, that's sort of the EQ. Also, I obviously ran this to my 3 reverbs. Now, if you take the reverbs off, and this time I'm going to set it right, instead of setting it to post and pre, listen to what it sounds like without the reverb being added. Very dry. I'm going to put on the short. Here's the medium. And here's the long. It's not huge, but it's just enough to give the drums, yet again, spatiality. Now, apart from that, you'll notice here on my bus channel, I've actually sent the drums to a bus of their own. And then I have a parallel compression that's being used on the drums. So this is really sort of the secret sauce on getting these. My bad. Sorry. This is really sort of the secret sauce on getting these drums to be punchy and getting the kick and the snare, especially, to hit harder without having to do a bunch of craziness. So on the compression channel here, I've got 1200 hertz as well as 65 hertz boosted. This is the kick mainly and the snare hits. And so I'm doing this, it's purposeful. There's like a reason for it. It's not just throwing it on there as some mixing ninja trick that you can do. So with that being said, this is the compressor. It's just the stock compressor that I'm using this here on the parallel compression bus. Take a listen to what it's actually doing. So as you can see, it's literally just crushing the tar out of that thing. And all you're hearing is the kick and the snare predominantly. Everything else is really, really subdued. But that punchiness that you're hearing is what's helping that punchiness on the kick drum and the snare to come through in the mix itself. So if I was to remove this from the drums completely, listen to what it sounds like before and after. So yet again, let's zoom in here. We're going to do a before and after. So loud music in 3, 2, and 1. Before, after. Before. It's one of those things that, yet again, it's very subtle. Like most things in music, it's very subtle, but it comes through in such a way to where it's like, wow. I want you to, this is kind of a good way to hear this too. I'm going to turn the fader all the way down and I'm going to blend it in while the track is playing. And I want you to hear the difference. When I get up to around 6 dBs, you're going to hear a lot of that. Okay. It's going to come together a little bit easier. So, oh no, he's on lockdown again. Oh, I'm assuming it's for the weather. So that could be a good thing. So go ahead and take a listen here. We're going to just blend this fader in ever so slightly and you should hear something coming from this here. So. Love it. So that's one of those things that, yes, you can overdo that. You can be like, oh, wow, I want tons of punch and tons of, but you're going to find out as you begin your mixing journey, as you begin to learn more and more about mixing, that subtlety is the key. And that's why a lot of these individuals like Dave Pensato, Warren Hewart, just to name a few, are so good at their craft because they have learned that subtlety and they have learned to be able to hear things that a lot of people wouldn't even pick up on. There's times whenever you're watching Warren Hewart's videos on his channel and he's going, all right, now listen to this, check this out. And you're going, I didn't hear it. I'm not hearing it. Don't beat yourself up about that because that comes with time. Eventually you begin to actually almost like train your ear to know what to hear and what to listen for. So don't beat yourself up about it. Just realize and understand that these things will come with time. You will be able to train your ear to hear these things. It's mainly just about focusing on what you're listening to. And that's why usually whenever I say I'm going to do this, I want you to listen to this area specifically. I'm kind of low key, like training your ears as we're doing this. So with that being said, Thomas Speck says he does narration and voiceovers, but I learn a lot here for my home studio. Well, nice. Awesome. Voiceovers is where it's at, man. I've actually got some voiceover work that I've done in the past. It didn't go anywhere, but it's definitely a whole new ball game with voiceovers. So that's what we did for the drums. Now let's go ahead and move on to some other elements of this. The riser, nothing really too special here. I threw some EQ on there. I EQ'd it much like I did the vocals. And I've got, yet again, a limiter on there just to keep it consistent so that every time the riser comes in, it's going to sound the same. And I've got some tube saturation on there just to help make it heard without having to turn it up too loudly in the mix. Okay. I know I've covered a lot in a short amount of time. I've drank coffee and I'm going a mile a minute. So if there's anything that you would like me to cover apart from this, please feel free to ask now and we can try to cover anything that I might have missed, or if there's something else that you'd like for me to cover. I'm going to go ahead and hop over to Facebook right now. Looks like Bop Studios is checking us out on Facebook. Good to have you, buddy. If you were trying to comment on here on Facebook, I'm probably not going to see it as quickly as I would if you were on YouTube. So awesome. We are currently up to 13 viewers and 10 likes. Good deal. Thank you guys. Smash that like button, as these youngins say these days. By the way, I just turned 39. That's Wow. And happy Valentine's Day to all of you as well. We didn't have a live stream this last week because of Valentine's Day. I hope you all had a good one. Good deal. So we do have some questions rolling in. Great. He's Mob the Gamer. He says, what are your thoughts on the new sound of hip hop? I feel like they're focusing on the high ends when mixing the vocals, and the vocals sound more present than the music. Don't you think so? That's one of those things where the hip hop that I have mixed and the tracks that I have done, I've even set in, done some, what do they call those? Features. I've actually been featured on a hip hop track here recently, and Bop Studios, you old fart. With that being said, yeah, I'm definitely seeing well, thank you, buddy. Thank you to those who are saying happy birthday. It was actually the first. So I guess I'm still trying to reap the rewards off of that. I'm feeling sorry for myself. With that being said though, I have noticed that yes, there is definitely more of a drive for the vocals to set out more. And I think that's because just sort of like, we went through the loudness wars and all of that stuff was happening with, let's see whose mix can get the loudest. It's almost like, let's see whose vocal can be more present. Now with rap in and of itself, the vocals are always going to seem a little bit more present because they don't predominantly use a lot of reverb on rap vocals. It's more saturation. It's more like upfront, punchy, in your face kind of stuff. So yeah, I can definitely see that. Whereas in, other genres of music, you kind of want that reverb on there to get it to set in the mix better, and everything kind of has to sound congealed. Now, with that being said, don't be afraid to mix your rap music like you want to hear it, because that's usually what will help define you as a mix engineer. Instead of trying to copy what everyone else is doing, do your own thing. I know I hear this all the time here on the channel. Why in the world do you use 3 reverbs? Well, because it works for me. And not a lot of people do it. So it kind of helps to set me apart as a mix engineer that I do things a little bit differently. Awesome question though. Okay, so I also have a really, really cool announcement to make, by the way. This Friday is the projected date for the release of the Ultimate Cakewalk by BandLab tutorial course. I am so excited for this. It's been on the shelf now for quite some time. We've been waiting for Warren Hewitt he's had so many things going on all the time. The guy is just incredibly busy all the time. So I totally understood it, but it looks like at least this Friday is the projected release date of that course. It's going to be stinking awesome. So it's going to be, let's see, there's 10 modules, with the 10th module being 10 modules in and of itself. So there's 10 like main modules that will cover pretty much everything that you need to know about Cakewalk by BandLab. And then apart from that, everything from there, okay, making sure this works here. There we go. So apart from that, you have your introduction to Cakewalk itself, how to use Cakewalk, what Cakewalk is all about. And then you go from there into literally taking a song from start to finish, from, what you would get from anybody who might send you clips. And it looks like the chat section's not popping up here. Apologize for that. I think everything is broke on the live stream today. That's just awesome. Anyway, so literally you will take your knowledge that you learn about Cakewalk and then you'll apply it to a song that you can then use for your portfolio. So you'll get the multi-tracks, you can mix along with me in the tutorial course, and you will end up with the end result, hopefully, if you follow along, a mix that you can actually get released out there. So you can literally, we've talked to the artist, she's totally fine with it. Very good song. The song is Found by Kayla Patrick, which actually she was found in one of these song contests. Her dad submitted the song. I loved it so much, I chose it as the winner. And then we ended up mixing and mastering the song, and then we built an entire course around the song. So he's going to be talking to me Wednesday about how we're going to go about releasing that and just getting some extra questions about what might need to be covered. And then Friday if everything goes well, Friday, we're going to be releasing that for the world to see. And unfortunately, I have to work Friday, so I'm not even going to get to be around. But anyway, we're going to get that out there for the world to see, and hopefully individuals will get to learn more and more than they ever have, sort of a hands-on approach from that. Bop Studio says, once the new machine is done, we will revisit BandLab. Good deal. I definitely recommend it to everybody, not just because I use it, but because it's just the most incredibly powerful free DAW on the market, hands down. I mean, nobody's got it beat when it comes to free DAWs. Awesome. All right, guys, so we have went through the mix breakdown. Now let's see if this is broke. Hopefully it's not. We have yet to do something that we do every single time. Mark George says he's definitely interested in the, oh yeah, that's right. I'm actually offering guitar classes online. It's going to be $50 a month. That's going to cover 2 classes a month, and they'll be uploaded in a private group. So if you have to miss a guitar lesson, you can come back and watch that guitar lesson. And basically what I'm going to do is cover the basics, and then I'm going to teach you how to play a song. And then from there, we'll go into a little bit of theory, not too much. I don't really work off of theory. I work off of feel. But my goal is to try to help individuals learn how to play guitar. So awesome. Okay, so without further ado, let's do something that we always do. The Wheel of Awesomeness. And ladies and gentlemen, it was hurting my heart. My heart was pained that Casey was gone. So I went ahead and brought Casey back. I paid him a higher salary. So Casey, welcome back, man. Go ahead and reintroduce the Wheel of Awesomeness now for these wonderful ladies and gentlemen who are in the chat. I say ladies, but I know there are no women that watch this channel. Anyway. Come on, Casey, bring it back.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I should say, I'm welcome back. This is Casey Kasem bringing you the Wheel of Awesomeness. That's right, we spin the wheel, and whatever the wheel lands on, that's what we'll pick. Thank you, Robert, for paying me a handsome sum of $2.50 an hour, and that's right, $2.50. This cheapskate is paying. All right, Casey, we're done. Anyway, thanks, Casey, for helping us out with the wheel again. Let's go ahead and spin the wheel and see where the wheel lands. A favorite. Nice. So in the chat section right now, let me know what was your favorite version of the song Crossroads. Now, if you know, here recently on the channel, we've been really diving into the song Crossroads, not just because I'm getting ready to release a song called The Crossroads, wink, wink, but also because it's got some really cool history behind it. So if you haven't checked out the video that I recently did on the song The Crossroads, you need to go and check that out. There's a lot of cool history that I talk about there. And in fact, I just shot another video for some more history on that. And I'm going to be posting in the chat right now, if you'd like to check it out, a link to go and watch that video. So if you haven't seen the previous video on the Crossroads, it's really cool. We actually talked about, there it is. There you go. So we actually talked about all kinds of stuff about the aspect of blues music. I love blues music, but one of the prevailing themes that kept coming out in blues music is this fact that some of the early prognosticators, if you want to call them that, of the blues, those who were called the father of the blues, were sort of had this bad connotation placed on them, and they said that they had sold their souls to the devil in order to obtain talent, wealth, and fame. So the more that I dived into that, I was like, really? And this is where kind of some of this stuff originated about me wanting to write my version of the Crossroads, which sort of takes this theme that everyone else has wrote about, John Mayer and Cream, and Rush has even done a version of the Crossroads. Bone Thugs and Harmony has done a version of the Crossroads. Elmore James, you name it. It goes all the way back to forever ago. And so we're talking about the history here, sort of not just of blues music, but of this prevailing theme that someone has sold their soul to gain some sort of wealth or fame. And so my song, The Crossroads, which will be released the 27th of this month, in 12 days actually,
is going to be based off of taking this theme and flipping it on its side. So I think you're going to find that cool. We've actually done some sneak peeks on the channel before of the song. So if you want to go back and find those, they're on the live streams we've done before. I do see an individual, Marcus Berzins. Hope I didn't butcher your name, but he looks like a newbie. So, of course, we got to give him a round of applause. So good to have you here. He is asking a question. What is the best feature? What all do you want to see in Cakewalk? And then he says, what new feature do you want? He says, Fruit Loop Studio is best for fast ideas, but Cakewalk is better. So that's a good idea. That's a really good question. So Bop Studio says his favorite version of the Crossroads was by Muddy Waters. Nice. I don't know. I think if there was another feature that I would like to see in Cakewalk, it would be, honestly, I don't know. It's one of those things where if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And yes, you can import MIDI. You can export MIDI. You can change anything you want in this. As you can see, I'm working out of a theme right now that I've developed myself. And I've got my motto up here: dream, create, achieve. There's not a lot of DAWs on the market that you can do that with. To be honest, I don't know that I would change anything other than maybe making it more, maybe making it play better with more hardware. I don't know. Mob the Gamer says you have a reaction competition of some sorts. It's not really a competition. But it definitely is. I do have a video submission form that's going on right now for those who want to listen to the song. You can listen to the song and then give me what is your reaction to the song. It's not really a competition, but I'll be using those videos to help promote the song sort of in an organic way, using other individuals to help promote the song instead of just me doing it by myself. I thought it would kind of be a better idea than me just getting on there every day and saying, hey, listen to my song. This is what's cool about my song. So Jimmy says he can't imagine any version connecting with me deeper than Robert Johnson himself, the originator of the song. It's definitely a haunting tune. Thomas Beck says maybe a simple UI for podcasts. I could see that. But honestly, I don't have an issue with the user interface at all. Like if it came for something, like if I was just going to use it for a podcast, like say for instance, I'm going to close this right now. If I wanted to do a podcast, for instance, I actually have a template that I've already created that's just for podcasts. Should be on here. Radio Jingle Pro Startup Podcast. Yep. So whenever I'm doing a new episode of my podcast, I've already got this pre-saved preset. I go in here and here's everything that I need for my podcast. Here's the intro music. I don't know why dialogue is saved in there, but anyway, here's intro music.
You are listening to the...
Whoa. And my voice is all jacked up. Evidently the sample rate was set differently here. That's good to know, actually. So if I go back in here and change this, hopefully this won't jack up my mic.
You are listening to the Home Studio Simplified podcast.
Yep, it's going to be permanently set to 48 because I'm running my interface at 48. So with that being said, but anyway, as you can see, it's really simple. It's literally 2 tracks or 3 tracks total, and then my buses are down here at the bottom. So you can set up a project any way that you want. Audio to MIDI that actually works more accurately. You know, it has its wins, and there are things much like that where people could find and say, well, it doesn't work like it should. But yet again, it's one of those, you know, I've never really had a problem where it doesn't work right for me anyway. Sometimes it's a little glitchy. I'll give it that. But for the most part, it usually works pretty stinking good. Marcus says we need a bug tracking challenge for who can find more bugs. All right. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and export this mix and send this over to Jason. Send this to the desktop. We're going to export it here, and I'm going to call this version 2 just so he doesn't get it mixed up. Export it in stereo at 24-bit. Boom. There we go. While that's doing that. Mob the Gamer, that is one thing. Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. That is one thing that I definitely would like to see is a noise reduction plugin. Now, I typically will use the noise reduction plugin that's in Audacity. I love Audacity mainly just for that noise reduction plugin. And there's no way, I mean, it's open source, so there's no way that they couldn't get access to that plugin, or at least, you know, create one in and of themselves that they could use. So Marcus says, when I control input gain control from track view, it doesn't change in inspector view when I control it from the instrument track. That's one of those things where I think whenever they release new updates and bug fixes, they usually will iron those things out as they go. And what usually happens with most programs is when you iron out one thing, something else crops up, and then individuals like yourself will be able to find out, you know, by the forum and things like that, like, hey, can you guys, and then they find them and fix them usually. A way to invert audio waves. That'd be cool. Technically speaking, the phase inversion does that. As you can see, it's now inverted. But it just doesn't show up as being inverted here in real time. So, all right, Jason, I have exported the new mix and master for your listening pleasure, and I'll send that over to you. And then we will go ahead and call this stream wrapped up. Okay. As you can see here too, back to the template thing, Thomas, you can create templates for anything. So I've got one, here's my Pro Startup template. This one is without plugins. So I can literally open this up and everything is color-coded. It's all got routing options already available. Everything's there, it's good to go. Yep. As you can see, the buses are in order. Every track has an icon that's applicable to whatever it is. Here's all my buses ready to go, all color coded. And every time I pull that up, boom, it's ready to go. Marcus says every bug equals a new white hair to a developer. Yeah, I definitely could see that. Awesome. Good to have you around here, Bop Studios. Always like having you all here. Hopefully you got something out of today's mix breakdown. And if there's anything that I didn't cover, feel free to email me at homestudiosimplified@gmail.com if you have any questions whatsoever. Also, you can get a hold of me through the Facebook page. We have a collab group called the HSS Collab, and that's a private group where we can get in there and post songs back and forth and just pretty much anything, just be able to talk back and forth. And it's kind of a cool way to stay in touch as well. But until next time, guys, you know, I love each and every one of you. I'm so thankful to have all of you here on the channel. Every time we go live, you guys are just awesome. and it wouldn't be the same without you guys. So Thomas says, thank you. I'm coming from Reaper, but I didn't like it, so it should be Cakewalk. Good deal. Well, I definitely have an entire playlist here on the channel of, I mean, it's a huge playlist of Cakewalk tutorials. So if you ever get stuck, you can always go and check that out. So until next time, guys, remember, we can dream alone, we can create alone, but together we can achieve so much more. And let's give some quick shout outs to these individuals. Awesome. Thank you, Super Mitch 63, John Dimitri, Marlon McDonald. Thank you, SP404. I can't say the rest of that. Hype Nod, IQ Sound Junk. Yeah, you guys are awesome. All of these are individuals who have recently subscribed to the channel, and I greatly appreciate that as well. Remember, if I get to 10,000 subscribers by April 1st, I'm going to shave my head. I didn't say that out loud, I hope. Anyway, until next time, guys, you all have a blessed day. Stay safe, stay warm, and until next time, we'll see you all on the flip side.